Hi there. I'm introducing my new Cinnamon Pear Legion Smart Doll again. Her name is Livia, and you'll see she's got some new clothes. I've made the vest from the free CJ pattern, and I've improvised her long socks, arm warmers, and belt too. The belt is my own version of the CJ double belt. I really like how it looks, and I wanted a larger version to fit the Pear size. You'll see it better at the end. But today I want to show you the skirt I made. Again, it's inspired by an old CJ design, the trench skirt. I thought I could create my own version to fit the Pear size girls, and used my Pear dress form to help me draft and create my own version. I made changes to the design though. I wanted a back closure instead of front, and I wanted a solid waistband all round. I like the false pockets though, and the flap front. I've digitized the pattern, which I'm cutting out here, so if you like my skirt and want to make it yourself, you'll find it available to download at bethramsden.com. This piece is for belt loops. It gets cut up after being sewn. The skirt front to be overlocked round 3 sides. The front side pieces also to be overlocked. They'll have an overlap. The pocket pieces, they can be overlocked on this edge, though it'll be sandwiched between 2 other seams later. Note you'll need mirrored outer and lining pieces for them. And the back pieces. Overlock the edges, and there's a dart to sew too. I marked the side seams. This is where the pockets will be joined. Finally, the belt. You'll also need a lining piece for this, and only the lining piece needs to be overlocked along the bottom. The template needs to be joined at the star, like this. There's a longer end to make note of. It isn't a symmetrical piece. For the linings, I recommend white cotton for the belt to minimise any staining risk. For the pockets, I would use something that matches your outer fabric colour. I think this skirt really suits being made from old denim jeans, something well pre-washed and a nice sturdy fabric. I'm using this, which has a little stretch to it and has a lined texture to it. It's dark blue but light on the inside, and I'm going to line the skirt pockets with a dark blue cotton to match. My pocket linings. And for the belt, I'm transferring my markings over, the centre front and the longer end. This fabric has a right and wrong side, and I'm marking on the wrong or back side here. When I cut this piece from the outer fabric, I'll flip the template over if I'm tracing on the denim's wrong side too, so the longer ends will match up properly. I'd already cut up these old jeans, so I'm just positioning my pieces where I can fit them. For trying to match grain lines, I use the fabric stripes to align my pieces like this. I'm going to struggle to fit the belt piece how I'd prefer it, so it's going to be cut squint, I think. For cutting out the 2 darts on the back pieces, I leave a tab of fabric attached at the top of the dart. I can use the edges to line up the dart more easily. Here, all my pieces are cut out and laid in order. I'm going to take all the pieces to be overlocked to the machine and do them all together. I use an overlocking foot on my regular sewing machine, which I really love for finishing edges with. I can use a zigzag stitch, and the foot prevents the fabric edges from getting scrunched up. Now I'll sew the darts. I've foolishly marked mine on the fabric's outer side, so I copied the dart onto the inside. I will pin and sew right sides together, following the curve marked. I'll also sew these two sides of the pockets, right sides in. I'll snip the corner and turn them out, press and top stitch along the sewn edge. Here they are, and I'm using orange thread for the upper side, but I'm leaving white in the bobbin, again to minimise any staining risk where the fabric touches the doll. I've had black thread stain one of my dolls before. And the darts. I cut the excess fabric and zigzagged the seams too. Now I'll take the front piece and fold and top stitch the three sides we overlocked. Here that's done, and we can line up the pocket pieces where they'll be joined. They line up with the curved side seam of the front side pieces, not with this straight edge. Take the back piece and match the curved side seams, right sides in. We'll sew here, turn the seam allowance towards the back, and top stitch it from the front. Repeat this for the other side. Here they're done, and you can see the orange top stitching. Next, I'll prepare the belt loop piece. I fold it lengthwise into 3 layers, with the overlocked edge on the outside. I'll then sew 2 parallel rows of top stitching. Here that's done. Now I'll cut it into 4 even lengths. Okay, next I'm going to fold and top stitch these seams on both of our joined side pieces. I'll fold in the edges and use lots of pins to help follow the curve. There they are, both sides done. Now I'll refer to the back template piece. You'll see there are 2 different seam lines marked. For this side, we'll fold and pin on the outermost edge, tucking in just the little flap piece. On the other side, we'll fold and pin the full seam allowance like this. We'll be attaching the waistband next. We'll use the copied over centre front markings to align the front pieces properly, but we'll work our way in from either end first. We'll align the long raw edges, right sides in, but leave the seam allowance of the belt extending past the folded in ends of the skirt. The other end of the belt will be the same too. But first, we'll pin our belt loop pieces into place. Turn them so the right side faces the skirt, and I've chosen to place them in areas that will minimise bulk. The front two, I line up to the side of the pocket edge. The back ones, I line up next to the darts. I made sure that the dart seam allowance is pointed towards the back edge. Then place the belt loop up against the ridge. Pin them in place, and here's a better look at the positioning. Now we can start pinning the belt to the skirt. Again, I start working my way in from each end, trying not to stretch out the waistband as I go. You can cut snips into the seam allowance if you need help easing the curves round. I use lots of pins for this bit. Okay, now I'm ready to pin my front skirt. I match the centre points and pin the skirt so it's in front of the two side pieces when the belt is folded back out. There should be a little overlap. Try to get this even on each side. I've sewn right along the waistband and now can turn it up. You'll see the belt loops will fold upward to show their right sides later too. I'm pressing the seam allowance upwards here, all the way along. Our last main piece is the belt lining. Align right sides together, the long ends should match up. Pin along the upper edge. You'll see a little overlap here at either side. Leaving the lining laid flat, we'll sew along the sides and the top edge of the belt. Once sewn, clip the excess from the corners and turn the lining towards the inside. I use something narrow but rounded to push out the corners. I work my way along the top edge, pinning so that the white lining doesn't show from the right side. I also tuck and pin the overlapping corners of the white lining. These will be sewn down in a moment. Here I've pinned my top edge neatly and will measure and mark approximately 2.5 centimetres down each edge past the belt. The next seam will be along each side and the top of the belt. Here you can see my orange top stitching of that. I make sure my lining is nice and flat, then we'll top stitch along the lower edge of the belt. There, it's looking good, and the inside of the belt is still all white. Next, we'll fold in the tops of each belt loop and sew them down, a few passes over each loop. There they are. You can sew over the bottoms too if you prefer. I've left mine with enough space to fit a belt into later. Now, for closing up the back. Your back seams should look like this. One is flat, one is folded. We'll open out the fold and align the lower edges. We'll sew up to the point marked on the pattern, which should make a nice overlapped closure. If you're unsure, test it with pins first. Here, when I flip it round, there's an overlap. just like with the front fly on the CJ jeans. Here's a closer look at where to sew. Now I like to sew a little reinforcing line across the opening here, and for the bottom of the hem, I fold the seam allowance flat and stitch across it too. Livia here is getting to test fit the skirt. I've pinned the front flap down for now to check the fit. I'm considering the flare at the back of the skirt. On the first skirt I made, I left the shaping to the darts alone. I personally like how it flares out a little in the back. It emphasises her curves. However, the original skirt has a kind of box pleat finish, it seems. I'm going to follow the curves of the darts so that there's 2 evenly spaced tucks in the back. Then I'm going to pin and top stitch the upper part of each tuck by 3 centimeters. This will hold in that flare just a little more if it's not to your liking. Of course, you can see which you prefer the look of and choose for yourself. I really like how this one turned out. The top stitching adds a little more visual interest in the back as well, don't you think? In the front, I've pinned the flap with a 2.5 centimeter overlap of the lower hem at each side. I haven't marked on the pattern where to put your front buttons, because I think it'll depend on the size you choose to use. You could have 2 or 3 on each side, and you'll need 2 more for the pockets. For my first skirt here, I used the largest metal rivets that I had. They're 8mm wide. I would like to try it with even larger ones actually, but I like how secure and flat they are. I want to use something different for this skirt though, and I'm looking at buttons. I think a solid metallic button will look best. I wish I'd planned ahead and bought some especially for this, because I don't have enough of each button type that I like. You'll need 6 or 8 of your chosen rivet or button. I'm going to go rummage for more options. Okay, I've come up with 4 that match and 2 slightly smaller ones for the pockets. They're domed metallic buttons with a weathered look. They're 12mm and 15mm wide. My skirt is still pinned and I'm measuring my placement. I'm marking 15mm down from the belt and in from the side, and 3.5 centimeters down from there to the next one. My pocket ones are also 15mm in from the edges. Here they are, all sewn on, and I've also attached snaps to the back. I think it looks really good. Quite different to my first one too, with the box pleats in back. I used a cam snap fastening on the first skirt closure, which looks cool in orange. Oh, and I also did some weathering on the first skirt too. I used pan pastels to add highlights and shading strategically to kind of mimic the stone-washed effect. What do you think of it? I really hope you've enjoyed today's video. I'm really enjoying sewing for Smart Dolls at the moment, but don't worry, I haven't forgotten about Blythe. I'll have a custom Blythe update for you next week. If you enjoy my Smart Doll videos, free sewing patterns and tutorials, please follow the link in the description to the official Smart Doll Creators nomination form. You can vote for me as one of your favourite creators there. There's no limit to how many people you can nominate either, so share the love. I would be so honoured to be on Danny's list of creators one day, so thank you very much if you can take the time to do it. Please welcome my newest supporter over on Patreon, the lovely Tammy Powley. She's one of my dolly friends here on YouTube over at Peacecraft Dolls, so check her out. Huge thanks to all of you for your support. Check the description box below for links to get the pattern and ways to support the channel. I love to read all of your comments below, so please let me know what you thought of today's project. Take care, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!